Buenos Aires, 1958. A man steps off a bus, checks his watch, and walks the same route he has walked every single evening for the past 8 years. Same road, same turn, same gate, same house. His neighbors call him Ricardo. A quiet man, a German immigrant, a factory worker at the Mercedes-Benz plant on the outskirts of the city. He keeps to himself, tends his small yard on weekends, and never raises his voice. His real name is Adolf Eichmann, and the reason no one has found him is not because he is particularly clever. It is because no one, until now, has fully believed he is still alive. Somewhere in Frankfurt, a man named Zvi Aharoni is sitting in a Mossad briefing room reading a file that should have been acted on a year ago. Aharoni is not young, and he is not reckless. He is a methodical man, a senior interrogator who has spent his career dealing with people who lie, who hide, who construct alternative versions of themselves. He speaks German, he speaks Hebrew, he reads body language the way other people read text. He has been handed this file because the person who was supposed to handle it sent back a report that said, essentially, not worth pursuing. Aharoni reads the report. Then he reads the original intelligence underneath it. Then he sits with both for a long time. The original intelligence comes from a German-born Holocaust survivor living in Argentina, a partially blind man named Lothar Hermann, who moved to Buenos Aires after the war with his daughter Sylvia and rebuilt a quiet life in the suburbs. Hermann had lost his sight in a German concentration camp. He had survived. He had said nothing publicly for years. Then his daughter brought home a boy for dinner. The boy's name was Klaus. He was confident, well-spoken, and had opinions about Jews that arrived at the dinner table with a coldness that had nothing casual about it. Sylvia mentioned this to her father. Her father asked more questions. Over the following weeks, through Sylvia, Hermann learned that Klaus's surname was Eichmann, and that his father had served as a senior SS officer during the war. Hermann knew that name. Everyone who had survived what Hermann survived knew that name. He did not go to the Argentine police. He did not go to the German consulate. He had reasons for both of those decisions that did not require explanation. Instead, he wrote a letter to Fritz Bauer, the Jewish Attorney General of the German state of Hesse, a man he had read about in a newspaper, a man he believed might actually do something. Bauer received the letter. And Bauer, who had spent a decade watching former Nazis quietly absorb back into West German institutions, prosecutors, judges, administrators, understood immediately that this could not go through official channels. A leak anywhere in the German legal system would reach Eichmann within weeks. So Bauer did something that was, technically, an act of treason against his own government. He took the intelligence directly to Israeli contacts. He bypassed Germany entirely. That decision lands on Zvi Aharoni's desk in 1958 as a single-page summary from a secondary source, attached to a dismissal report from a Mossad agent who had visited the address in Buenos Aires and concluded the man living there was too poor, too ordinary to be who Hermann claimed. The logic was simple. Adolf Eichmann had been a powerful man, a senior bureaucrat of the Reich, a man who had commanded enormous institutional authority and organized the deportation of millions of people across 14 countries. Men like that did not end up in crumbling houses on dirt roads in working-class Argentine suburbs. They ended up in villas, in Paraguay, in Bolivia, protected by the organizations that helped them escape. Aharoni reads this logic, and something about it bothers him. He has spent years interrogating men who committed atrocities. What he has learned, which the dismissal report does not account for, is this. The men who survive are not the ones who live well. They are the ones who understood early that comfort is a target, that the moment you become visible, you become findable. What if Eichmann had understood that? Aharoni requests the original Herman correspondence. He reads it carefully. He notes that Herman provided not just a name, but a specific address, a physical description consistent with wartime records, and a biographical detail, the boy Klaus, whose surname matched that had no plausible innocent explanation. He also notes something that the dismissal report glosses over entirely. The address Lothar Herman originally provided, Chacabuco Street, no longer matches where the man in question is living. By the time the first Mossad agent visited, the man had moved. Not fled, moved. He had relocated voluntarily to a new house on Garibaldi Street in the suburb of San Fernando. This means two things. First, the original agent may have been surveilling the correct man but the wrong address. Second, if Eichmann sensed even a fraction of surveillance, even ambient, unfocused attention in the neighborhood, he is already aware, at some level, that he should not become too comfortable. The file on Aharoni's desk is not a dead end. It is a starting point that was abandoned too early. He goes to his director. He says he wants to go to Buenos Aires. The response is not immediate authorization. The response is a question. On what basis? And this is the first problem Aharoni cannot answer cleanly. He does not have hard confirmation. He has a second-hand account from a blind man whose daughter dated the wrong boy at dinner. He has a partial photograph from wartime records that may or may not match a man who has aged 13 years on the run. He has a gut assessment that the dismissal logic was flawed. This is not the kind of evidence Mossad acts on for an operation of this scale. Because here is what nobody in the briefing room is saying out loud, but everyone is thinking. If they go to Argentina and grab the wrong man, it does not just end the operation. It ends the ability to ever try again. It burns every asset they have in South America. It triggers an international incident with a government that has been quietly absorbing former Nazis for a decade and has significant political incentive to make Israel look reckless. And Eichmann, if he is really out there, if he is really alive, disappears into a silence so deep that nothing will ever bring him back up. There is something else sitting underneath all of this. Something that doesn't appear in the file, but that Aharoni carries with him anyway. Fritz Bauer, the German Attorney General who took the political and personal risk of passing this intelligence to Israel, has now come back a third time. He has sent word that if Israel will not pursue this, he will have no choice but to bring it through West German legal channels. He does not want to do this. He believes, correctly, by every measure, that the information will leak. That someone in the German judicial infrastructure, a former colleague of Eichmann's, a former party member who passed a denazification hearing and is now a senior prosecutor, will make a phone call to Buenos Aires. Bauer is not threatening Israel, he is warning them. The window is not permanent, it is closing, and Mossad has already wasted a year. Aharoni gets his authorization. Not full operational approval, that comes later. What he gets is permission to travel to Buenos Aires under a false identity and conduct preliminary surveillance. Confirm or deny. Nothing more. He flies out of Europe alone, traveling through a third country, using documents that do not connect to his real name. He lands in Buenos Aires in the early months of 1960. He takes a room in a mid-range hotel in a part of the city that has no connection to San Fernando. He does not contact the Israeli embassy. He does not contact any existing Mossad assets in the country. He is, for operational purposes, completely alone. He buys a local map. He studies the bus routes. He finds Garibaldi Street on a Sunday afternoon, driving past it once without stopping. He sees a man outside the house working in the yard. The man is thin, medium height, glasses, somewhere in his early 50s. Aharoni does not stop. He does not photograph him yet. He drives on. That night, in his hotel room, he pulls out the wartime photograph. The informal personal image that Manus Diamant had spent months tracking down through former acquaintances of Eichmann across Europe. He holds it next to the image in his memory. He does not cable anything to Tel Aviv yet. What he needs is not a better photograph. What he needs is to watch this man move. Because the face can change, the name can change, the house can change. But the way a man holds himself when he believes no one is watching is the one thing 15 years of hiding cannot fully erase. He sets his watch for 5:15 the following morning. The question is not whether the man on Garibaldi Street is Adolf Eichmann. The question is, what happens if he is, and someone else finds out before Israel does? Aharoni watches Garibaldi Street for 11 days before he touches a camera. This is not laziness, this is method. A photograph taken too early, from the wrong angle, under the wrong light, is worse than no photograph at all. It gives headquarters something to argue about. It gives skeptics a reason to say the image is inconclusive. Aharoni needs a photograph that cannot be dismissed the way the first report was dismissed, with logic that sounded reasonable because it asked the right question and then answered it wrong. So he watches. He clocks the bus. Number 203, arriving at the stop on Ruta Compromiso at approximately 7:48 in the evening, 6 days a week. The man steps off, turns left, walks the same 400 meters, opens the gate, goes inside. The pattern does not vary by more than 3 minutes in either direction. He watches the man in the yard on weekends. The posture, the way he tilts his head when he is looking at something, the particular stillness he carries when he stands at the fence in the early evening, looking toward the road. On the 8th day, Aharoni cables Tel Aviv with a preliminary assessment. Not a confirmation, a direction. He writes that the subject's physical profile is consistent with wartime records, and that behavioral surveillance supports continued operation. Tel Aviv responds within 48 hours. Continue. Do not engage. Do not photograph until pattern is fully established. Aharoni reads this and sets the cable aside. He already has the photograph. It is not a clean image. Shot at distance through the window of a car moving slowly past the bus stop, using a lens that was not designed for this kind of work. But it catches the man in 3/4 profile. Glasses on, bag in hand, turning from the bus toward the road. Aharoni studies it for 2 hours that night. He takes out the wartime image, the informal photograph that Diamant had spent months hunting down across Europe. He does not overlay them technically. He doesn't have the equipment for that. What he does is older than equipment. He looks at both images for a long time, the way you look at a word until it stops looking like a word. Then he cables Tel Aviv with the photograph attached and writes 4 words that will authorize everything that comes after. The man is him. What happens next in Tel Aviv is not celebration. What happens is a meeting in which several senior Mossad officials raise, for the first time in organized form, the question that has been sitting under this operation since the beginning. Even if they are right, even if this is Eichmann, even if they take him cleanly, hold him, sedate him, dress him in a crew uniform and walk him onto an El Al aircraft, what happens after the plane lands? The legal problem is not small. Israel was not a sovereign state during the Holocaust. The crimes Eichmann committed were committed in Europe, against Jews who were not Israeli citizens, in countries that were occupied by a foreign power. Israel has no established jurisdictional claim under any existing international framework. An Argentine court could argue, and will argue, that the abduction itself constitutes a crime under international law, regardless of who was abducted. A UN Security Council resolution could demand a return of the prisoner. The trial could be dismissed on procedural grounds before a single word of testimony is heard. This meeting does not resolve those questions. It produces instead a decision that only one man in the room has the authority to make, and that man is not in this meeting. The decision goes to David Ben-Gurion directly. Ben-Gurion, who has been briefed in general terms but not operational specifics, listens. He authorizes the operation. He does not authorize it because the legal problems have been solved. He authorizes it because he has made a different calculation entirely. The trial, he believes, is not primarily a legal proceeding. It is a historical one. It is the mechanism by which the world, specifically a post-war generation in Europe and America that has largely moved on, will be forced to hear, in detail and in public, what actually happened. Eichmann in a courtroom in Jerusalem is not just justice. He is evidence. He is testimony. He is the organizing event around which an entire generation of survivors can finally speak. Ben-Gurion is not thinking about legal jurisdiction. He is thinking about the historical record. Nobody tells Aharoni this. Isser Harel arrives in Buenos Aires in late April 1960. His presence is the clearest signal of how seriously Jerusalem is taking this operation. Mossad directors do not go to the field. Harel is here, which means this cannot be managed at a distance. The team assembles over 2 weeks, each operative arriving separately, traveling through Europe on roundabout routes, checking into different hotels, using documents that do not connect to each other. There are approximately 30 people involved, 12 on the snatch team, the rest managing safe houses, logistics, communication, and the extraction pathway. The Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires knows nothing. This is deliberate. Embassy staff are diplomatic targets, trackable, watchable, their communications monitored by Argentine intelligence. Any hint of this operation through embassy channels would surface within days. This also means the team has no institutional fallback. If something goes wrong, if someone is detained, if a document fails a check, if the operation is blown at any point, there is no embassy to call. There is no diplomatic cover. There are 30 people in a foreign country committing what international law would classify as a kidnapping, with no legal protection and no government that will publicly acknowledge their presence. Peter Malkin is one of the first operatives in country. He is the one designated to make physical contact with Eichmann, the first touch, the moment of no return. He is experienced, physically capable, linguistically functional in Spanish. He is also the one who will spend the next 2 weeks building an assumption that nearly breaks the operation before it starts. Malkin clocks Eichmann's bus pattern. He walks the route. He identifies the optimal interception point, a stretch of road near the Garibaldi Street corner where visibility is low and foot traffic is minimal in the early evening. He runs the timing in his head repeatedly. He becomes, over 11 days of surveillance, entirely confident in the pattern. The bus at 7:48, the turn left, the 400 meters, the gate, every evening, without variation. He reports this confidence to Harel. The plan is built around this confidence. What nobody on the team knows, what no amount of external surveillance can reveal, is what is happening inside the house on Garibaldi Street. Eichmann has a routine, yes, but he also has a wife who sometimes asks him to stop at a shop on the way home. He has a son who occasionally picks him up from work when the weather is poor. He has, on at least 2 recorded occasions in the weeks before the operation, taken a different bus entirely because his regular route was delayed. The pattern is real, but it is not mechanical. It is the pattern of a human being living a human life. And human lives contain the small, irregular deviations that no surveillance map can fully account for. The operation does not yet know this. The operation believes it knows exactly when and where Eichmann will be on May 11th. This is the assumption that will shatter on the night itself. there is something else Aharoni learns in the final week of April, through a contact he is not supposed to have activated. A low-level Argentine intelligence officer, not an asset, not a recruited source, simply a man Aharoni had encountered through a prior operation years before, mentions, entirely in passing, that there has been an internal review triggered by unusual patterns in recent Israeli passport entries into Argentina. Nothing formal, no investigation. A bureaucratic flag generated by a mid-level administrator who noticed that the number of Israeli nationals entering Argentina in the 6 weeks before the independence anniversary celebrations was statistically elevated. Some of the hotel registrations didn't match. Some of the stated purposes of visit were thin. The flag has not reached senior levels. It is paperwork, not surveillance. Nobody is watching the team directly. But the paperwork exists. And paperwork, routed to the wrong desk at the wrong moment, becomes a problem that no field operative can solve from a safe house in San Fernando. Aharoni brings this to Harel. The conversation is short. Harel asks, "Does this change the timeline?" Aharoni says, "It means we cannot afford to hold Eichmann longer than 9 days. If the Argentine flag escalates while we are still in country with the subject, the extraction becomes impossible. The aircraft gets grounded. The team gets arrested." Harel looks at the calendar. The El Al aircraft, the diplomatic Britannia on the official Israeli delegation visit, departs on May 20th. They are planning to take Eichmann on May 11th. That is 9 days exactly. 9 days is the margin. Not 10, not 12. 9 days from the moment they grab him off the street to the moment the aircraft wheels leave Argentine soil, or the entire operation collapses in the most visible, most damaging, most internationally catastrophic way imaginable. Harel does not change the plan. He confirms it. And then, 4 days before the operation, Aharoni learns something that he does not immediately share with the full team. He has been quietly running a parallel confirmation, cross-referencing Eichmann's known wartime associates against Argentine immigration records, looking for anyone who might have arrived in Buenos Aires in the same period as Eichmann and who might, even passively, be aware of his location. He finds a name. A former mid-level SS officer who entered Argentina in 1952 under a false identity and is currently living under his own name, apparently having decided at some point that he was obscure enough to be safe, in a suburb 40 minutes from San Fernando. This man is not a threat by himself. He has no intelligence connections. He is not monitoring Eichmann, but he is close enough, geographically, that if the abduction generates any local noise, any neighbor account, any street-level rumor, anything that reaches the local German expatriate community, this man will hear it. And if he hears it, and if he has any remaining loyalty to the network that helped Eichmann escape, he will make calls that Mossad cannot intercept in time. Aharoni flags this. He recommends a containment option, not action against the man, simply a monitoring protocol. The recommendation is noted. No additional resources are allocated. The operation is 9 days from execution, and it is already carrying a variable that nobody has fully solved. The question is no longer whether they can find Eichmann. They have found him. The question is whether the thing they are about to do, in 9 days, on a dark road in a suburb of Buenos Aires, will stay contained long enough for an aircraft to take off. And underneath that question, quieter and more permanent, is the one that Ben Gurion is already thinking about and nobody else on the team has fully reached yet. What happens after? May 11th, 1960. San Fernando, Buenos Aires. 7:31 in the evening. 3 cars are positioned along a stretch of Ruta Compromiso within walking distance of the Garibaldi Street corner. The engines are off. The team is in position 17 minutes before the window opens. Peter Malkin is standing near a low wall on the north side of the road, wearing a jacket that is slightly too warm for the evening. He has a newspaper. He is not reading it. The plan is clean on paper. Eichmann steps off the 203 bus at 7:48. Malkin approaches. Two operatives close from behind. Eichmann is taken to the car, placed on the floor, covered. The car moves. The entire contact sequence is supposed to take under 40 seconds. Malkin checks his watch. 7:38. He rolls the newspaper. Unrolls it. He has run this sequence in his mind so many times over the past 2 weeks that it has started to feel less like a plan and more like a memory of something that already happened. This, he will later understand, is the most dangerous state a field operative can occupy. 7:48, the bus arrives, passengers step off. 4 people, then 3 more. Then the door closes and the bus pulls away. Eichmann is not among them. Malkin does not move. This is the training. Do not react visibly to deviation. Hold position. The next bus on this route runs 12 minutes behind. It is possible Eichmann missed the 203 and caught the following service. He waits. At 7:55, one of the support operatives sends a low signal from across the road. They have now been in position for 24 minutes. A man has walked past twice. A woman has paused near one of the parked cars to check something in her bag. None of this is operationally significant, but all of it is the kind of ambient attention that accumulates into exposure. 8:01. The second bus arrives. Malkin watches every face stepping off. Eichmann is not there either. Inside the primary vehicle, Zvi Aharoni is sitting in the back seat with a direct line to the safe house. He does not know yet what Malkin is feeling on that road, but he can calculate it. He was the one who confirmed the pattern. He was the one who told the team that this bus, on this evening, was the window. If the pattern has broken tonight, if Eichmann took a different route, or stayed late at the factory, or was picked up by his son, then the team has one viable decision tree remaining. They can hold position until 9:30, accept the extended exposure risk, and hope he appears. Or they can stand down tonight and reset for tomorrow. Standing down tonight means the team disperses, returns to safe houses and resets everything. It costs 24 hours. It does not cost the operation. What it costs is the assumption that the pattern is reliable. And once that assumption breaks, the entire execution plan, which is built on timing precision, becomes a sequence of guesses. Aharoni signals the primary car. He tells them to hold position until 8:30. 8:14. A figure appears from the eastern end of Ruta Compromiso, walking not from the bus stop direction but from a connecting road that feeds in from a different arterial route. He is walking at an ordinary pace. He is carrying a small bag. Malkin sees him from 40 meters. The figure is the right height, the right build. The walk, and this is the thing Malkin has spent 11 days memorizing, has the particular quality that no surveillance briefing fully captures, but that, once you have watched a man for long enough, you recognize before you can articulate why. He took a different bus tonight. Not his usual route. A different line entirely, arriving from a different direction. This is the incorrect assumption playing out exactly as Aharoni feared it might, and exactly as nobody adjusted the plan to account for. The interception point they have chosen is on the wrong side of where Eichmann is now walking. Malkin is positioned for a man coming from the bus stop to his left. Eichmann is approaching from his right. The two support operatives are staggered for the original approach vector. Malkin has approximately 8 seconds to adjust his position naturally before Eichmann reaches the corner and turns toward Garibaldi Street. If he moves too quickly, it reads as deliberate. If he moves too slowly, Eichmann passes the optimal contact window and continues toward his house, where grabbing him becomes geometrically harder, more lighting, proximity to the front door, possible visibility from inside. Malkin folds the newspaper, steps away from the wall, and walks at a casual angle that brings him onto the same path as Eichmann without a direct approach line. He asks in Spanish whether the man could help him with a direction. The Spanish is not perfect, it is functional, but the accent carries something that doesn't sit cleanly as Argentine. Eichmann slows. He looks at Malkin. His eyes move briefly to the middle distance. Not alarm, but the social friction of a stranger at close range in a quiet suburban road at night. That pause is the window. But Malkin does not take it immediately because something stops him. Eichmann is not wearing his glasses. In every surveillance observation over 11 days, Eichmann has worn glasses. They are part of the visual profile. They are in the photograph. They are in Malkin's internal image of this man. The face in front of him, older, thinner, the jaw carrying the particular laxness of a man in his mid-50s, is wearing no glasses. It takes Malkin less than 2 seconds to process this. People remove their glasses. People carry spares. This is not a disqualifying difference. But for those 2 seconds, standing 4 feet from the man he has been sent to take, Malkin is operating on incomplete information and is aware of it. He takes the window anyway. He steps in. He says, in German now, "You are Adolf Eichmann." Not a question. The figure goes very still. 2 operatives are already closing from behind. Eichmann's first movement is backward, not a run, a flinch, the reflexive recoil of a man whose body registers threat before his mind has processed the words. 1 operative catches his left arm. Malkin controls the front. The 3rd operative arrives on the right side within 4 seconds. Eichmann does not scream. He does not fight in any organized way. What he does is go rigid, a full body stiffness, like a man who has been bracing for this moment for 15 years and is now simply experiencing it. He says something in German, low, almost to himself. The operatives get him to the car. He is placed on the floor behind the front seats, covered. The car pulls away from Ruta Compromiso at a pace that is deliberately unhurried. Nothing about the car's departure should read as flight. Malkin gets into the second vehicle. His hands are steady. His breathing is not. For approximately 4 minutes, the drive from the interception point to the first route checkpoint, the operation exists in a state that nobody has a clean word for. The subject is in the car. The interception is complete. The street behind them shows no response. No shouting, no movement, no lights coming on in nearby houses. This is the false release moment. Everything has worked. The street is quiet, the car is moving, the man is on the floor. It feels for those 4 minutes like it is over. Then the radio signal from the second car carries a single word from the operative monitoring the road behind them. A vehicle has turned onto Ruta Compromiso from the western end, moving slowly, headlights on. It is not a police vehicle, it has no markings. But it is moving at the speed of a vehicle that is looking for something, not driving through, not accelerating, simply rolling at a pace that does not match normal evening traffic. The primary car does not change speed. It does not alter its route. Any deviation now is visible to whatever is behind them. Inside the car, the operative holding Eichmann applies light pressure to keep him still. Eichmann is not struggling. He is lying on the floor of a vehicle in a Buenos Aires suburb, and he is the only person in the car who does not know whether the vehicle behind them is about to end this differently than anyone has planned. The car continues. The route checkpoint is 90 seconds ahead. The vehicle behind them slows further at the Garibaldi Street corner and stops. For 11 seconds, it sits motionless at the intersection where Eichmann should have turned 40 minutes ago. Then it turns in the opposite direction and drives away. It is a neighbor. Likely someone looking for a parking space. Likely someone who lives on this road and was taking their time because they were tired at the end of a Tuesday evening. The primary car passes the checkpoint. Aharoni, in the vehicle behind, receives confirmation that the subject is secure and the route is clear. He does not exhale immediately. He waits another 60 seconds, watching the road, before he lets himself register what has just happened. Then he picks up the radio and sends a single coded word to the safe house. One word, prearranged, meaning, "We have him." The 9 days begin now. The safe house is a rented villa in a suburb of Buenos Aires. Eichmann is chained to a bed. A blindfold covers his eyes during the first hours. A Mossad medical officer monitors his pulse, his breathing, the particular physiological responses of a man who has been taken from a road and does not yet know what comes next. The interrogation does not begin with accusations. Zvi Aharoni leads. He asks Eichmann methodically to confirm biographical details. Birth date, hometown, father's name, wife's name, children's names. Eichmann confirms each one. He gives his SS service number without being asked. He confirms his rank. He confirms in the procedural language of a man discussing administrative history, the nature of his wartime role. He does not ask for a lawyer. He does not ask where he is. He says, at one point, that he has been expecting something like this for a long time. On the third day, he signs a document. Written in German, it states that he consents to stand trial in Israel of his own free will. The team treats this as confirmation. It is also the moment the operation's second phase, the one nobody fully planned for, quietly begins. Because Iser Harel is not only running the Eichmann operation from this safe house. In the same days that Eichmann is being held and interrogated, Harel authorizes a secondary search running in parallel. Intelligence has suggested that Josef Mengele, the Auschwitz physician, may also be living in Buenos Aires at this time. Harel commits a portion of the same team infrastructure to locating him. Some of the same safe house communication lines. Some of the same support personnel. The same operational security envelope, now stretched across two objectives. The Mengele search fails. He is not located. He had, in fact, already left Argentina for Paraguay. Harel eventually stands the search down. But the Eichmann team was never told, in full, that this parallel operation was running. Some of them learned about it in pieces. Others found out years later in memoir accounts. The point is not that the secondary search endangered Eichmann's extraction. It did not, quite. The point is that the safe house infrastructure holding the most wanted Nazi in the world was simultaneously being used to search for a second Nazi, doubling the communication load and the foot traffic without the full team's knowledge. It was the kind of decision that, had it surfaced differently, would have been the thing historians wrote about instead of the success. The 9-day clock is now at day 6. The Argentine intelligence flag, the bureaucratic anomaly that Aharoni identified weeks earlier, the internal review triggered by elevated Israeli passport entries, has not escalated. It remains paperwork. But paperwork does not stay still indefinitely. It moves through systems at the pace of institutional routine, and institutional routine has no consideration for the operational timelines of foreign intelligence services. Harel is aware of this. He has been aware of it since Aharoni flagged it. He has made the calculation that 9 days is inside the margin. What he has not fully calculated is the following. On day 7, one of the operatives managing a secondary safe house in a different Buenos Aires suburb makes a routine errand run to a local pharmacy. His Spanish is functional but marked. The pharmacist, not an intelligence asset, not anyone of significance, makes a comment to a neighbor later that evening about the number of foreigners she has been seeing in the neighborhood recently. The neighbor mentions it to her husband. The husband works in a municipal administrative office. This chain of ordinary human conversation does not reach Argentine intelligence. It dissolves into the ambient noise of daily life the way most things do. But it is the illustration of a principle the operation carries from its first day to its last. 30 people cannot move through a city for 3 weeks without leaving traces. Traces do not always become threats, but they exist whether or not anyone is watching. May 20th, 1960, Ezeiza Airport. The El Al Bristol Britannia is on the tarmac. It has been here as part of an official Israeli delegation visiting Buenos Aires for Argentina's 150th independence anniversary. Its crew is legitimate. Its diplomatic passengers are legitimate. Its departure is scheduled. Eichmann is sedated. He is dressed in an El Al crew uniform. He has walked through the airport supported by 2 operatives, his posture managed, his eyes partially open. He is documented on the crew manifest under a false name as a crew member who has become ill during the trip. At the gate, there is a delay. Ground crew paperwork, a form requiring an additional signature from an airport administrator who is not immediately available. The departure window shifts. 90 minutes, the aircraft sits. Eichmann is in a crew seat. His sedation is calibrated for the original timeline, not a 90-minute extension. The medical officer seated nearby monitors him and makes a quiet adjustment. Nobody outside the aircraft knows what is happening inside it. The 90 minutes pass in the way that 90 minutes pass when the margin between success and catastrophe is thinner than the paper the administrator's form is printed on. The aircraft takes off. 3 days later, David Ben-Gurion stands before the Israeli Knesset. He announces that Adolf Eichmann is in Israeli custody. The room goes silent before it erupts, and the operation, which had been contained for 9 days inside a bubble of operational security, becomes the most publicly discussed intelligence event in the world within 48 hours. Argentina's response is immediate and formal. Buenos Aires lodges an official protest with the United Nations. The complaint is specific. The State of Israel has violated Argentine sovereignty, abducted an Argentine resident from Argentine soil without extradition request, without judicial process, and without notification. The protest does not dispute who Eichmann is. It disputes what Israel did to retrieve him. The UN Security Council takes up the matter. A resolution is passed acknowledging that Israel's action violated Argentine sovereignty and requesting appropriate reparations. Argentina temporarily withdraws its ambassador from Tel Aviv. Fritz Bauer, the man who started all of this, who passed the original intelligence to Israel 3 times before anyone acted on it, who committed what was technically treason against his own government to put this operation in motion, watches the diplomatic fallout from Frankfurt. He is not thanked publicly. He cannot be thanked publicly, because acknowledging his role would expose the nature of his breach of German official protocol. He returns to his work in the West German justice system. He continues fighting a legal infrastructure still populated by men who served the same government as Eichmann. He dies in 1968, alone, under circumstances that were never fully resolved. A monument to his role in the Eichmann case is not erected in Germany until decades later, long after the people who were alive to be held accountable were gone. The trial opens in Jerusalem on April 11, 1961. Over 100 witnesses testify. Most of them are Holocaust survivors. For many of them, it is the first time they have spoken publicly about what they experienced. The proceedings are broadcast internationally. An entire generation in Europe and America, people who had grown up after the war, who had been handed a version of history that moved quickly past the details, watches and listens. Hannah Arendt covers the trial for The New Yorker. She sits in the courtroom and watches Eichmann in his glass booth, and what she writes will divide people for the next 60 years. She writes about the bureaucratic quality of his evil, the absence of ideological fire, the way he speaks about genocide in the language of logistics. She calls it the banality of evil. She does not mean he was harmless. She means something more unsettling, that the machinery of mass murder does not require monsters. It requires administrators. Eichmann is found guilty on December 15, 1961. He is executed at midnight on June 1, 1962. His body is cremated. His ashes are scattered at sea, beyond Israeli territorial waters, so that no location exists, no ground holds him, no geography can be marked or visited or named. He is the only person ever executed by the State of Israel. What the operation solved is legible. It is in the historical record. Eichmann was found, taken, tried, and executed. The trial produced a documented account of the Holocaust that reached audiences who had not been reached before. It is, by the only measure that matters in a courtroom, a complete outcome. What it did not solve is harder to locate, but more durable. The precedent established in May 1960 did not retire with the Eichmann case. It became the architectural foundation for how states think about extraterritorial action. The quiet logic that sovereignty is negotiable when the stakes are high enough and the political cost of protest is lower than the political cost of demanding return. Governments cited it. Intelligence services referenced it. The legal discomfort was absorbed into institutional practice so gradually that the discomfort itself became the norm. Lothar Hermann, whose dinner table started everything, received a modest payment and faded from public record for decades. Zvi Aharoni, who confirmed Eichmann's identity alone in a Buenos Aires suburb and cabled 4 words that set 30 people in motion, spent years unable to speak about what he had done. Peter Malkin, who stood on a dark road and made a 2-second decision with incomplete information, wrote about that moment late in his life with a precision that suggested he had never fully stopped replaying it. The operation worked. The questions it opened did not close with it. They are still open. This has been Hidden Ops. If this operation leaves you with more questions than answers, that is the accurate response. Subscribe to Hidden Ops for documented intelligence history. No dramatization, no conclusions. Only the operations that quietly shape the world you are living in.